another Six Cents and Opinion episode.
Oh
This week's
snap!
episode, thank you. Cue the air horns. Uh, we're talking about the new movie Ready Player
You better
One.
edit those in.
What'd you say? Oh, the air horns.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
however
better
we
edit
go.
this part out.
Talking about the screaming and whispering noises that were happening just as we began the actual recording.
I don't know what you're talking about. I just heard a tomato whiz by me, and then the episode started.
No, I think it says a lot about the tomato whizzes by you.
That means somebody else made a bad joke.
I, I,
It was probably actually somebody behind him.
Nobody knows what we're talking about.
Do they ever know what we're talking about, though?
Cares. Nobody actually exists because we're talking to no one. So.
Yes.
Two
But
fans.
no one. Is it ironic that our one fan's name sounds like no one?
That's true. Is it also sad that our one fan, we know his name? not somebody that found us.
Yeah, well,
How many views do we have on our most viewed video? 15?
20.
What, 20 now? That's like 5 more than 15.
Yeah, dude, we're high rollers.
Oh, crap. I just remembered. I pressed refresh on that video a bunch of times.
Damn it, Xander. Alright. On this video,
Okay.
though, this video is going to be our most popular. Because we're talking about
a hot button issue.
hot buns.
Ready Player One.
Yeah, that's the movie. And the book.
Can we call the episode Hot Buns? A discussion of Ready Player One.
No, but if we call it Hot Buns, no, we need to call it Ready Player One so that way we get the search results
Mm-hmm.
and then put the thumbnail as Hot Buns.
Yes.
Noah, do you feel confident to make a thumbnail with hot buns?
Here's what you do. You take our 10-cent opinion box and you put some bread inside of it that's like steaming. And you say
Some
hot
hot
buns for
buns.
10 cents. Yeah. Yeah.
Noah, did I do it right? Probably
Yeah. No, probably not. Definitely not. Anyway.
I mean, your first misstep was drumming with your mouth. Everything else was wrong from there.
Yeah. It was all
But you
down
didn't see me
here.
on this side of my computer. Maybe I'm actually sitting by a drum set. You never know.
Where'd you get that jump set?
Stole it from you.
The Rocksmith drumsmith, Rocksmith. I mean, not Rocksmith, the Rock Band drum set.
That's probably what it is. You're right.
There's just some loud thumping and then me throwing it across the room.
Yeah, in the background here.
Yeah. Oh man, that was a lot of fun. Should we talk about the topic?
Maybe, yeah.
Probably.
Anyways, so book or movie? What do we start with?
Let's just say, did you guys like the movie?
I enjoyed it. It was better than I thought it was going to be, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't life-changing. It was. I don't know how to say it. It's kind of genre-defining, but also not at the same time. If
The
you know
book
what I mean.
or the movie?
The movie. It's very, very different. I'll say that.
Okay. Colton, did you like the movie?
I enjoyed it, but then again, it's important that you have to make the distinction between the book and the movie, because if you go into the movie expecting it to be exactly the same as the book or just way similar, then you're gonna be
Disappointed?
To be fair.
Disappointed. That's the word I was looking for. Thanks, Noah.
You're welcome, buddy.
To be fair, it's been about a year since I've read the book, so I don't remember all the details of the book. I remember that in the book he shaved his head, though. He didn't do that in the movie. Spoiler alert.
No, he did not.
All of the challenges and trials were different.
Yep.
Pac-Man wasn't in the movie. Or like that part where he was on that desolate planet, and then there was like this one Pac-Man machine, you know. Also,
No, that was whenever he went back to Halliday's home world.
Wasn't it just a bunch of
He went to the
arcade
bar.
boxes? Yeah.
It was the Chuck E. Cheese equivalent on Halliday's Homeworld, I think.
Actually, I think it was a diner, but doesn't matter.
Fine then.
So you enjoyed it, so I guess you liked it then. Yeah.
But it's also interesting that my dad, who's read the book 6 times,
What do you?
but I think that
What do you think of it? You got cut off.
my dad has read it 6 times, and he did not like the movie.
Really?
Ah.
Well, why don't we start with the opinion of your dad? Why didn't he like the movie?
He hated it. He thought it was an okay. He thought it was an okay.
Wait. Question. He didn't hate it, or he hated it?
Did not hate it.
Okay.
I want to be very clear because he'll probably watch this episode, and he'll be mad at me if I don't explain it right. But I think he was expecting it to be somewhat similar to the book in any way, and that's really not what it was.
No.
Actually, a good way to put it is if you gave a minute summary of what the book was, that would be what the movie was working off of, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, yeah, kid lives in the future, VR is really, really huge, he has to pass 6 trials in order to all right.
Money. Yeah, there you go.
Here it is.
Anyways, so that being said, do you think Steven Spielberg, the director of the movie, actually ever read Ready Player One from cover to cover?
Yes.
He did? Okay. I don't know why I'm sound surprised by that, but I also don't know why it matters, so I'm just gonna shut up.
Do you think Stephen King ever read it cover to cover?
Probably.
He wrote it, nerd.
What do you call me a nerd? You're the horror nerd.
Anyways, sorry, that was a bad joke. Cue tomato.
Carry on. So,
Anyways.
what were you saying,
I
Xander?
would. Oh god.
Or Colton?
No.
I don't know. Somebody say something.
Okay,
For
so
real.
why did your dad dislike it? What was his reason?
He felt like a lot of the story points were, I don't know, sudden. He didn't really like the changes that they made, although he would concede that it was somewhat necessary. So in that sense, I think he doesn't.
Why was it necessary?
Change the book to the movie is an entirely different medium.
True.
Instead of having 30 hours of entertainment or so, you have 2 hours. And you can't have long segments where a character is talking to themselves without sounding cheap. If that makes any sense.
Tell
The
that
best way to give
Blade Runner
exposition.
2049.
Now, it is true that when you transfer a story from one medium to another, you have to recontextualize, or when you transfer the medium from one to another, you have to realize why the original story was good in that medium and what tools you can use in this new medium to change the original story to refit this other medium, which is the problem with a lot of anime adaptations, is that you get a bunch of movies that are going from animation to live action, and nobody's paying attention to how can we make this story good in live action instead of how can we make the same thing. Because if you change the story in the process of trying to make it better for that medium, or trying to tell some other perspective of it, then that's a good adaptation. But if you just stick to the source material exactly the same, then you're going to fall at the wayside because you're not taking into account how they're different,
Right.
and you're not using it to your advantage.
That being said, I actually have a question for you guys.
Go for it.
What do you think is the best way to transfer a story between, say, you have a book to a video game, or a book to a movie, or a game to a book, or a game to a movie, or a movie to a book, or a movie to a video game? What do you think is the most faithful way to recreate one story from one place to another?
Colton, do you want to answer this? Because I can go off on a rant.
Go ahead, Noah.
All right, so faithfulness is not what you want in a good adaptation. And that right there is your problem. because it's easy to make something faithful, but it's no longer. It's just a clone of what you had, and it's a shell of its former self because it's in a new medium. So, oh,
You were
right.
talking about the best medium and how I'm completely wrong about saying that you should have a faithful recreation.
Well,
Because
you're
a
not
faithful
completely wrong
recreation is
because
not
at some level, you should still try and take what made the
communicate the
original
same
best.
idea.
Yeah, you still need to communicate the same idea, but you're doing it in a different way. You're doing it in a different medium, and so you should figure out how I can rewrite the story using the tools of this medium to create this similar effect. But what I was actually talking about was the Halo books. So the Halo books are interesting because basically you're taking an established universe and you're adding stuff onto it, but you're not scrutinizing with the actual story.
You're just expanding upon the basic story. Yes.
Yeah, which is easy, but I suppose that's not even that you can't classify that as an adaptation. So, uh,
Okay, so let me talk about philosophy for a second.
okay,
No.
let's cut off Colton. Go for it.
So that Colton can't object.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, would you agree with me that the original idea, the original story happens in the creator's head, in the writer's head,
No.
or in the many writers' head?
What is
Okay.
the many writers?
Like, say you have a bunch of people working on a story. That's where the original ideas come from.
Okay, here's the thing. There's a line, a quote by Miyazaki, which is like, an idea comes from thousands of fragments of chaos. And that's the same for a story where it's coming from thousands of different locations and personalities. You see, taking the examples of.
Let me
Yeah,
interject.
go for it.
That quote is not talking about the origins of the idea themselves. It's talking about the components of the idea. So Xander is not wrong in assuming that the mind takes all those thousand different fragments and combines them into what we call the idea. So it's not like the idea itself is a million scattered fragments you put it together, but all of those fragments can be molded into an idea. But go ahead.
That is correct, but the way I was about to use that quote has nothing to do with the idea itself, rather the product. So I was
Okay,
going
go
to
ahead.
say, taking the case of a game, for example, it annoys me when you hear people, like journalists, say that, oh, this is uh, X's game or Y's game because they're the lead or the director. When in reality, a game is made up of every single person who touches that game is going to influence it. So if you would take it as each of those persons is adding to the idea a little bit, then the product itself is the combination of everyone who's touched it, and it's not truly one person's vision. Now, in the case
You
that.
know what that reminds me of? Sorry to interrupt.
Go for
You
it.
know what that reminds me of? Is on the original Batman Arkham Asylum, there was one single developer who his one job was to work on Batman's cape. And he spent a whole year working on the cape physics. A whole freaking year.
That man is a hero.
Yeah. And I think they use the same cape physics throughout all the games. So.
The hero Gotham deserves.
The hero this cape deserves.
Anyways, continue.
Now there are cases where like a director might have steered a team. So like not Miyamoto, who is the CEO of Nintendo who died a couple years ago?
Wata. I don't remember. I don't know his first name.
Iwata there. Like on Earthbound, the Earthbound team was doing horrible, and because of Iwata, he basically had them rework the whole game, or he helped a whole lot. And so a majority of the game comes from Iwata. So I would be fine with saying that is, I guess Iwata's game, or mostly his game. But I would still never say that at its foundation. Yes, Satoru Iwata, thank you. I would never say that at its foundation, a piece of art, unless it's made by one person, is a single person's product.
Okay.
Why were we talking about this?
Because you wanted to vehemently disagree with Xander.
Anyways, so say that there is one person, or that there is a whole team of people working on something, right?
Okay.
Would you argue that that's a copy of all of their original ideas and works?
No. Do you know where he's going, Colton?
Colton, he knows exactly where I'm going with this.
I'm just, it's just funny because go ahead, Noah. I feel like this is a Socratic style discussion, but you're just being super argumentative. So Socrates ever go, oh, just agree already. Come on. Sorry,
All
go
right,
ahead.
Callicles.
Yeah, have you ever read Plato's books?
Yes.
Nobody ever challenges Socrates, and I'm Socrates right now, so you have to agree with everything I say.
But you're asking
Except
me
for
the questions.
except for exactly, but nobody still disagrees with Socrates. That's how it works. Except for Parmenides. Parmenides disagrees with Socrates, and then he actually wins. But you know what?
I feel like that's
for
the
a
equivalent
second.
of like the death of Spider-Man comics. Somebody finally disagrees.
Is that what happens to Spider-Man? Someone just says no, and he dies.
Oh, okay. I know this is completely unrelated, but you know what we can do at my house this weekend?
What? Don't talk about that. It's so weird.
I don't want to forget.
Do you want me to write it down? I'll write it down for you.
Let me type it in the chat.
All right.
That's funny.
Resume.
I'm not sure if I edit that or not.
I say you leave it in there.
Okay.
For it.
All right. So back to adaptations and yeah, and Ready Player One. The thing about adaptations is that taking Ghost in the Shell for example, you have the original manga, the Ghost in the Shell movie, standalone complex, and then Ghost in the Shell Arise. Then you have the Ghost in the Shell live action movie. And with each of those, they're still taking a core idea and a core world, but then the creator and the team are taking that idea and they're making their own adaptation of that for a specific style or medium or whatever. Right?
Okay.
So
you still don't disagree with Xander, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with him here. I'm trying to point out that what I want to get at is that the original creator of a story does not mean that that story is technically his when you start having adaptations, because taking Ready Player One, for example, you have the original manga, sure.
Unless
but
you're
then
Hideo Kojima, then everything's yours, including Konami.
Yes, that's true. But taking the example of Ready Player
Including
One,
Xander, apparently. Xander, I'm yours.
kept you waiting, huh? Anyway, so taking the example of Ready Player One, you have the original source material, the book, which, the book is its own story, but then think of the movie as if Spielberg were to make that story, how would he go about making it? Don't think of it as this guy's trying to, how can we stay true to the original? Think of each adaptation as this guy's making this work, here's how he would go about doing it.
Well, I feel like it's important when talking about adaptations and sort of the philosophical applications of that sort of thing that it really talks about the spirit of a creation.
Yep.
I feel like in a lot of different cases, the various artists or people who are involved with adaptations, they're intending to get at the spirit of the actual work itself and then expand upon that or mold it into the medium, which is exactly what you're saying.
Yes, that is what you want. But don't be afraid to stray away from being faithful, because if in doing so you make a better work because of it, which you probably will, all the better for it.
Well, I think this is the reason where I think that faithful is not used in the sense that it's a direct recreation, even though that's kind of how it's used. But I would imagine faithful to be that you are maintaining the spirit or the character of the actual original work.
Oh, well, Yes, I'm separating those two. I was saying that faithfulness is when you're trying to stay exactly towards something, and the spirit of something is when you recreate it in your own vision, but still keeping true to what made the original unique and
So
what
All
was
right.
then,
important about it.
going back to what I was saying earlier,
About?
is a faithful work. Say that the Ready Player One movie was absolutely faithful to the book. Would
Okay.
it just be a copy of the book?
Yes.
So um, then it would be unnecessary, right? Because you already have the book.
Not necessarily because you would still have it in a visual format, but unnecessary in the sense that it doesn't really do anything new
Okay.
or interesting or yeah.
So
It,
what I've been trying to get at this whole time is that Plato actually talks about art, and he doesn't like art because he argues that basically we are copies of perfect forms, and so we're already copies. The whole world that exists around us is a copy of all of the forms, which is the essence of everything. And he argues that art is just a copy of a copy, right? And that it's unnecessary.
they're like mini cupcakes.
They're like mini cupcakes.
If you got cake, and then the small version of that is cupcakes, and the small why you need another version, which is mini cupcakes. It's like
Because they're
mini
fucking
cake.
adorable.
Maybe you just want to ingest less calories, Colton.
Continue with your Play-Doh talk.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that's just what I'm saying is that I was getting at not only that being analogous to Plato, but also wondering if you think that art or an adaptation of an adaptation or an adaptation of an original work is unnecessary because it is a copy of a copy, which is the original creator's ideas.
I could comment on that.
Please.
Go ahead.
I think that if a direct recreation had been made specifically for Ready Player One as a movie, it's not necessarily useful in the fact that it adds something to the original spirit, but it's useful that more people would have access to it, or they'd be more willing to partake in a 2-hour adventure than a 30-hour or so adventure, or at least pick up a book, which nobody does anymore.
Well, your dad read the book 6 times, so. But actually, you are right, and that still applies to this next scenario I'm about to present. But even with the movie's existence, because this movie now exists, and so many people are like, "Oh, you should have gone and read the book." How many people do you think will actually go and read the book? Probably a lot, because they see that there's this whole other story and universe to it. Like I walked to the bookstore the other day, and they had Ready Player One right in the entrance of the store.
So, and this is kind of related. Have you ever watched a movie and then read the book and then been disappointed with the movie afterwards?
No.
Really, I did that with the Hunger Games. Basically, it just meant that I had a more direct visual idea of what it was looking like whenever I was reading the book. And
Honestly, I don't think I've ever done it in that way, where I've watched a movie, then read a book.
what were we trying to say, Xander?
Well, I was just wondering if you guys have had personal experiences with that. I've never done that because my mom has always taught me to read the book before you watch the movie.
Yeah, that's what I was told.
But I'm gonna be reading so many books next semester that I'm not gonna be able to read books for pleasure. Because
No, you still haven't seen Lord of the Rings, have you?
No, I saw the first 2, as you put it.
It does feel like 4 movies, yes.
It is 4 movies.
Yeah.
They're broken into
Oh
parts.
my gosh, the ending to the third movie is like an hour long. It's ridiculous.
The third. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, so that's probably a case where I'll watch a movie and then read the book.
What were you saying, Noah? You had an example to make?
Well, my example was that because the movie exists now, people will still go off and read the book, even though they're not the same.
let's talk about how exactly Ready Player One adapted the original work and how that was a good thing or a bad thing.
All right, 25 minutes in, let's do this.
Uh,
Do you want to go first?
I'll go first. After I've talked about this with like 5 different people, and I've sort of refined my view on how it adapted it. And really, what the movie was trying to do was they were trying to make it as accessible of a story as possible. And I think that in that they were successful. The first step in that was removing all of the super obscure 80s references,
Like Star Blazers.
like Star Blazers, and they went with something sort of familiar with everyone, is The Shining.
They kept the Atari games at the end though. However, they changed the game from Joust to Adventure because Adventure was more popular than Joust.
No, they played Joust in the first trial when they go through the Dungeons and Dragons thing. Then they play. What do they play at the end?
How do you not? Did you not write a book report on this book that you read 6 years ago?
I'm sorry. I just remember that they played Joust and he won because he played Joust all the time because he has this weird obsession with 80s culture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had the obsession because what's his name had the obsession? The guy who's like literally God in the movie. Yeah, Halliday.
He is literally God in this movie, which is
pretty
weird,
much.
But whatever.
So,
guys, go on. I have more to talk about, but you go.
So that was the first step, making it more accessible. The second was making sure that the story revolved around something relatable to everyone. Instead of being the trials being somewhat non-characteristic of Halliday or human elements and focusing solely on 80s references, it talked more about Halliday's experience as a human being is failures.
Pac-Man was non-obscure reference, okay. Where's my Pac-Man?
Well, you did get
but they wanted
Gundam.
to.
You did get the Gundam. I like that part.
It showed up for 30 seconds, but it was the best part of the movie.
Actually, well, here's the thing that I also like about sorry to interrupt you, Colton. Here's the thing that I also like about Ready Player One is that everything that happens in the movie, even if it doesn't seem like it matters later in the movie. Like right in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the movie, Daito. Yeah, Daito gets that artifact that allows him to turn into a giant robot, and he uses it at the end of the movie. I don't know if you guys got that. I think you probably did because, But everything that they did in the beginning of the movie ended up mattering later, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, we can talk about composition in a second. There's a whole lot to talk about.
There's a whole lot and not a whole lot of time. That's okay.
And I think that the story did a very good job of wrapping itself up nicely because it was capable of that everyone could understand without having to go through a full experience. Because in the original book, the message revolved around almost like the journey, and it allowed for them to spread out all of these different events, and so that it actually feels like a realistic story. Whereas in this movie, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like a movie. Everything happens within a span of 3 days or so, whereas in the book I think it was 2 years from when the book starts to it ends.
There was a long time in the book.
So I came to a similar conclusion as you did, Colton, where I think it was a good adaptation in the sense where they never tried to they tried to did their own thing, right? It was more of how can we make this into a action adventure movie instead of this almost psychoanalysis on how fantasies and false worlds drive people, which is what I liked about the book. But I would say in their pursuit of trying to make a good, action adventure movie, family friendly movie, they did do a good job. Where I enjoyed the whole movie, and I thought that if the trials had been the same as they were in the book, then it wouldn't have fit. It wouldn't have worked because they weren't fun, so to speak. This movie was fun. which
Is that your thumbs up? This movie is fun.
I'm actually doing air quotations, but that would also work. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I enjoyed it. I think at its best when they're actually doing the challenges. So at its they're actually doing the challenges, and they're engaging in the different games and the different things of the virtual reality. That's the best part of the movie. When there's all these references in the background and all this like stuff is going on, that's a lot of fun, and it doesn't seem over the top or ridiculous like a Michael Bay movie does. Probably because there's still some level of the way that it's constructed, it's still somewhat thought through, where it's still enjoyable to watch, even if there isn't much emotion to it. But I did think that the movie, on its emotional side, on its more human sides, it fell through, especially with the love interest between Artemis and what's his face, Parcel.
Parzival, yeah. They also
just
changed
frustrating.
Artemis a little bit too.
A bit.
Well, I mean, they changed her personality a lot, but they also changed in the book the the red splotches
Yeah.
cover more than half her face
Right.
in the book, and in the movie it was just around her eye.
This isn't a problem per se, but if you start thinking about how often we actually portray women in art as beautiful, and when can you ever pull up a character who's like not necessarily pretty, but more on the ugly side? You can't actually think of someone like that. And this is a case where they needed a character who looked semi-ugly, but yet they still made her look pretty. It was like, well, whatever.
Yeah.
But
and that was just frustrating too, because it felt so fast and thrown in there.
Yeah, what was that about? They were in the Resistance or something like that. That was her first line. Maybe that was just a reference. That would make sense.
Yeah, but I don't know. That was kind of a strange. That was one of the big points where the book or the movie divulged from the book, was having them meet instead of at the very last moment, like the last page.
Yep.
Because that's what made that story feel like it had some level of closure on it, is because it was like why she was choosing to use the actual Oasis was to hide the fact that she didn't feel good enough in reality, and they didn't talk about that other than like a 5-minute conversation, which ended with a creepy guy like stroking her face. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean
No.
they do touch on some of the ideas in the book, in that say reality is the only thing that's real, right?
Oh my
In
gosh.
that,
I was waiting till somebody stopped talking so I can talk about how much I hated that line, but you
I
can go
mean, but
bash
it's
on it too.
true. Anyways, so they talk about that in the movie, and how people use the Oasis as an escape, and nobody cares about anything anymore because the Oasis is a better life than what they have in the real world, right? Because they can be whatever they want, they can do whatever they want, right? Which also, I'm gonna touch on some of the really awkward scenes in the movie in a
Please.
minute.
Touch
But
all
I'm gonna
over
let
them.
shut up. Anyways, Noah, I want you to rant about that line, because I didn't think that there was anything wrong with it. But go ahead.
Okay, actually, part of the reason I hate it so much was because it does make sense in the sense that the story they're telling in that movie goes along with that line quite nicely. And unlike most other action adventure movies, it was good to see them have a moral to the story. But personally, just that line not only goes against what I thought the book was about, but putting that aside because it doesn't matter if it's an adaptation. Personally, I just disagree with that line because not.
So you're saying that there's something else that is real that's not reality.
What?
You disagree with the line. That's what that means, right? That there's something that's
okay.
real,
Okay, let me restate that.
not
Not that the line is bad, but just the way they used it in that context annoys me because I see if you look all around you, you can see how the virtual world, how arts affect people, and how they're both good and bad, and how they really shape everyone and the culture around you. And you have this movie which is saying that's like, no, it's just bad. You should always get up and leave, go outside because that's the real answer.
Well,
Hey,
no, they
Xander.
didn't necessarily say that.
Hey,
because
Xander.
What?
Are your philosophy senses tingling? Because mine are. Talk
Well,
about what's real. So go ahead.
shut up, Parmenides. Anyways, so basically, well, they didn't necessarily say that in the movie because they also, they said that it's not good to spend all of your time in the Oasis, right? Because it's about moderation. It's about the golden mean, Colton.
Oh my gosh, you're using that out of context, though. That's about virtues, man. What's wrong with you?
You know
Sorry,
what?
go ahead.
Are you saying that reality can't be a virtue?
You know what? That tree is pretty courageous over there.
That's a damn courageous tree. But
All right.
all right, let's hear your last thoughts because we got to wrap up.
Okay, can I talk about the awkward scenes in the movie for a bit?
Yeah.
Okay, that dance club scene in the movie was really weird.
Yo, Jack Black. He's pretty funny.
What? What?
Jack Black, he's a funny dude.
Yeah,
What
I like
about
her.
him?
I will go, yo, a Jack Black, and then like your audio cut out.
All right.
Okay, anyway,
Carry on.
that was a really weird scene to like sit down and watch with your family.
As soon as that happened, we were sitting in the theater, and I actually heard my mom like shift, and so I was painfully aware of the fact that she was right there, and so then it was just a really uncomfortable scene. Yeah.
Although the even more uncomfortable scene, although it was fitting to the movie, is the scene in the or just the whole Shining part was pretty uncomfortable. I mean,
in a good way?
kind of, in that it was tense, but I'm talking specifically about the bathtub scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
All right. Is that it for uncomfortable stuff?
I could go into further detail, but I really don't want to.
Okay. I think that the Shining bit was kind of happy with it.
You're happy? You're okay with it?
For what they were doing, and I understand why they picked something like
Colton,
that.
Colton, your just whole sentence got cut off.
Yeah. Go back to what you think about the Shining scene.
Yeah.
Like the Shining scene.
You did or did not like the Shining scene?
I did not. Can you hear me?
Oh, no. Okay, carry on.
Right now.
Colton.
Hello.
All right.
Can you hear me?
No, we can
Yes.
hear you, dumbass.
I can.
You're not responding. I asked if you can hear me. Okay.
No, we can't. All right.
I did not like the Shining scene.
Okay.
Why did you not like it? Elaborate.
And don't stop talking because that's when it cuts off.
Relatable to the audience members, and the fact that it wasn't, not everyone has seen it, and also that it didn't really fit with the rest of the movie. I felt like it would have been better to have one of the classic charming 80s movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off or Back to the Future or something like that.
I mean, Back to the Future might have worked, but Ferris Bueller's Day Off isn't really a challenge. What is it, like, don't crash the Ferrari? They already had a racing scene.
It was in the book.
I don't know. I thought it fit pretty well. It was just another famous movie that these geeks were probably into. And it made for...
I mean, even if not everybody's seen The Shining, The Shining's still a cult classic.
Like, I've never seen The Shining.
Knows what it is.
And I still enjoyed that section.
I mean... It was also weird because it wasn't exactly a one-to-one. It felt like you were on an amusement park ride for the movie, if that makes any sense. Like the giant, whenever the giant axe comes down in the maze, that feels like something you'd be on like a roller coaster ride. And you'd be like, ah, and you go down. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. But that's what the action adventure genre in cinema is basically.
But that's not what it should be.
Of course, it's not what it should be, but that's what's popular. So that's what it is.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't like it because I didn't feel like it should be that way. I feel like it should be something more meaningful, or at least relatable.
Well, the whole movie should have been more meaningful, but it wasn't.
But the movie had some level of meaning, which makes it better than normal movie, normal action.
Yeah,
action
I know what
movie.
you're saying.
Yeah.
However, the Shining scene, as far as cinematography goes, especially when you compare it to the actual movie, I couldn't tell the actual areas that they were in from the real movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what they were saying on the RT podcast as well.
So realistic. Every single scene that they used in there, except for maybe the scene with the giant axe, that doesn't make much sense. But it was kind of strikingly it had a striking resemblance to the actual movie, which I appreciated.
I would have been more happy, I think, if they didn't include that giant axe scene. Like that one moment just peeves me off. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the actual movie, the little boy is chased through the maze by him and like a normal sized guy with the axe. And if they had that going, then I guess it probably wouldn't have worked because H is like 7 feet tall and masculine. It would be kind of funny.
But he's actually a black woman.
She, excuse you, don't assume
Okay,
gender.
well, H is a he. The real person who is H is a she. So he is actually a black woman. Is not necessarily incorrect.
You know what else bugged me? And then we should probably stop.
Why are you telling us to rap? Like
that bugs me.
It's a real Slim Shady.
Yo, it's your boy Slim Shady coming at you with no rap.
Go ahead.
All the D&D like stickers and references. Like the kid was wearing a D&D T-shirt. I think it's the one that Xander actually owns. And like they held all those D20 stickers, and like they are pandering so hard. And all these suckers are dying for it. It's amazing.
What I think that was one thing that kind of frustrated me. I think that's why my dad was kind of frustrated with it too. Is because all of the references they made didn't feel like they had much charm. Charm.
If it wasn't 33 minutes, I would have you go on, but it's time to end the show.
Let me talk about it.
Just remember that D&D is created by the devil, and that if you play it, you will go straight to hell.
That's true. Don't play it, kids.
Play it.
Even though we'll probably have an D&D episode one day. Colton, what were you going to say?
What is Colton going to do for the D&D episode?
Talk about Pathfinder.
Okay. But I felt like the original book itself had lots of charm in its references. Anytime that they referred to some movie or song or TV show, it felt like it was done because the author actually loved that thing. Right? And that the characters in it loved that thing. But in this, it felt like they were thrown in because they had to be. Like you were saying, whenever they had all the D20 stickers and being like, nerds, we're geeks, and like they all high five. I just have an issue with that because it doesn't feel real.
That's kind of like why people don't enjoy The Big Bang Theory.
That's why I don't enjoy The Big Bang Theory.
No, I just don't enjoy it because they're laughing like every 3 seconds.
Yeah.
It's literally...
Is that your shut up and end the episode laugh, Noah?
No, that was my they're laughing every 3 seconds. So I'm going to laugh.
Hey, Sheldon, you got a chip on your shoulder?
All right, and with Sheldon's
gotta edit
chip...
that now.
I'm not going to touch it. With Sheldon's chip on his shoulder, we're going to call the episode here. All right?
Well, what if some grandma is listening to the show and she's like, oh man, I love me some opinions, and then that comes through and she dies of a heart attack?
We are not reliable. Please don't sue us. See ya, Internet.
We are not reliable. Goodbye.